Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you're having a chance to dig into this module about curriculum mapping mini-units. Our topics today are understanding the need to curriculum map mini-units, outlining a process to engage in the work, including prioritizing standards and developing a scope and sequence, having an opportunity to consider what you'll need to create a mini-unit, and identifying next steps. This module will be broken into 2 videos to allow for efficient rewatching. The first video will focus on prioritizing standards and developing a scope and sequence. The second will build on those priority standards and scope and sequence and will focus specifically on building mini units. In a typical curriculum review, we invest much of our time unpacking standards and developing that scope and sequence and then aligning resources. Often, the investment of time is necessary because the standards are new and we are digging in and working to uncover the differences between what has been known and what will be new. There is a need for many of us to walk through an alignment process this year so as to have colleagues be on the same page and to make sure that we're prioritizing the most important high leverage standard skills and concepts, and the process needs to be efficient, and that is the purpose of this module. While it might feel most comfortable to engage in this work before students begin with us, you and your colleagues can walk through this process at any time with the standards you have not yet addressed. We need to begin with the standards. Most of us have content standards published by the Minnesota Department of Education, including the Early Childhood Indicators of Progress, or ESIPs. For some content areas, standards are shared by professional organizations, like the American School Counselor Association sharing ASCA standards, and the International Society for Technology and Education, the ISTE standards. And still others of us must align with standards produced for higher level courses using guidance from ACT, Advanced Placement, and any college with whom we have an articulation agreement, or industry standards. Wherever your standards come from, that's where we must begin. The next step will be to look at the standards through the lens of the real criteria. For those of you who have served on a curriculum review committee, you may have a vague recollection of that criteria. For those with whom this is unfamiliar or for those who need a refresher, the article and a quick video explaining the real criteria is in the optional resources. In short, you'll review your standards, determining which are among the most important, looking through these 4 criteria. Readiness. This standard provides an essential foundation upon which future learning must be built. Endurance. This standard is not only important for the current grade, but is also a skill that will be used again and again in the future. Consider this a lifelong skill. Assessed. This standard is one that is given significant emphasis in state and national assessments. And leverage. This standard will be of use not only in the content for which it is written, but it is useful in a variety of content areas. So here's the tricky part. Not every standard can be a priority standard. While you may be able to see the applicability of each label on just about every standard, prioritizing standards asks you to make some decisions about which are most critical. A great rule of thumb to consider is that about 1/3 of your standards are priorities. Once you as an individual have identified your set of priority standards, the next step is to connect with your course or grade level colleagues and discuss. Begin with what you each have in common, and then for those that offer differences of opinions, each member of the team should share what led to that individual decision. Negotiate until you reach consensus. If you have one more or one less standard than the 1/3, you're still good to go, but try not to blur the lines any more than that. Once you and your team have agreed to a list of your priority standards, your next step is to organize them into a sequence that makes the most sense for students. Consider either what they have the greatest capacity to master as they walk into your class, or you may begin with the most foundational standard that you'll lean into again and again as the year continues. Once you reach agreement on the order in which you are going to deliver instruction and assess your standards, then you have developed your skeleton, scope, and sequence for the year. Way to go! The next step is to outline a mini unit, and the directions to develop a mini unit will be found in the next video. Thank you for taking an opportunity to watch this quick video about outlining your priority standards and developing a skeleton, scope, and sequence.